decks. I cannot overstate how much I enjoy watching.
I know you. Oh, I know you do. As we are going to watch number 1 on our Open Series leaderboard, Braun-Duin playing against Todd Anderson, the man with the most Open Series top 8s of all time. Both these players sitting at 6-0. Todd.
Showing a good appreciation for the Esper Menace. 2 main deck copies of Duress alongside his 4 Thoughtseizes.
Yeah, 6 discard spells in the main deck, really saying I do not want to lose to the deck that you are playing. The deck that's super popular is Anderson's going to draw a copy of Dissolve before passing the turn back.
And also, oddly enough, Brian's deck is showing a really powerful concession to the aggressive that could be popping up this weekend. 3 main deck copies of Bramaz.
Absolutely. Let's see what Brian wants to cast this turn. Looks like it's going to be a Desecration Demon. It looks like Brian may have stumbled and fumbled on mana a little bit. There's a Dark Betrayal to get that off of the table. I have a feeling that Brian is maybe trying to set up an Obsidat here. The problem for him is that Todd has a Dissolve in his hand, so he's at the ready. Maybe he's going to start by attacking with Sin Collector again. Anderson's going to go down to 14. The 2 friends from Roanoke doing battle. There is an Erebos.
And Todd has to really, Todd of course would really like to scry with this Dissolve, but he also has to clutch this Dissolve quite hard here because it's the one insurance policy he has about Brian resolving something huge, particularly a spell like Elspeth. And so he'd prefer to handle these threats with things like Detention Sphere and leave the Dissolve left over.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to do. D-Sphere is going to take care of Erebos. Can't let that stay in play. So Todd will figure out how he wants to tap his mana. And then he'll be kicking it back with the Dissolve that he is trying to, as you mentioned, kind of clutch onto for dear life to take care of something. BBD will draw a card. He's attacking with Sin Collector first. Anderson's going to go down to 12. Let's see what the follow-up play is going to be. It's going to be a Revoke Existence. That one, I suppose, is worth dissolving. I think simply because Todd's like, I need a Revelation, or I need something big to do.
Yeah, he definitely needs to scry in that spot, and also Erebos is definitely capable of taking over the game for Brian from that spot.
Guess who found something to do?
Todd did.
There's an Aetherling. All of a sudden, this game has changed because, and this is what happens a lot when we watch this Esper deck when it draws the Aetherling. It's going to blink out now from the Hero's Downfall, but what it allows Todd to do is really say, all right, Brian, no more messing around with your stupid discard and setting up spells one at a time. You got to get the game over with now. Supreme Verdict is going to be discarded via Thoughtseize.
But this could be a really good window for Desecration Demon to possibly still steal this game for Brian. Aetherling can do a lot of things, but it can't contain the air.
Well, there is Double D. It's in the house. Todd, no cards in his hand. Let's see what he finds. That is a Temple. Todd will be able to get in for some points of damage here. Aetherling's going to go unblockable. We're going to see him pump some into it, probably blink it out so it can block the Sin Collector and or Mutavault that is in play. So here he comes for 8.
And this Mutavault's a really powerful tool for Todd here, of course, allowing him at least one creature that he can essentially sacrifice for free to tap down the Desecration Demon.
Maybe a little aggressive by Todd there with how much he attacked for, because he's only got 1 blue mana available, and then that Mutavault. So we'll see if that comes back to hurt him a little bit. He was pretty hasty in his decision there, but maybe he senses a little bit of weakness here from Brian. Trigger on, he's going to activate Mutavault to sacrifice. Got it.
Well, it appears that Brian fell to 8 because of that Thoughtseize the previous turn, in which case Todd's setting up for exact lethal.
Okay, that would be the issue because I saw his life totals at 10, so it looked a little bit strange, but yeah. And if we do have our life totals updated, so it obviously makes a little bit more sense now. Todd is going to untap. He's going to take a draw very quickly. And he says, all right, I'm going to try to kill you, and that's going to do it. So Aetherling, I don't know if you knew this, really good card.
Very powerful when someone has a lot of lands in play.
Yes, getting the job done there. Todd gets that ball rolling, and now it's 1-1, and we're moving on to a third game here.
And you can see Todd is very conscious about speed of play, too. I mean, he played that second game extremely quickly, conscious of the fact that time is always an issue when you're playing a deck like Esper Control.
Now, one thing not to forget, because we talk so much about this Open Series points race for the Season 1 qualification. Brian's on top, and you got Huey, you got Brad, you got CVM, Eric Smith in fifth place, excuse me. We don't ever talk about the guy on the right.
Yeah, he went through a bit of a dry run to start 2014.
Yeah.
Did not have a great Open Series run in the ones that he did attend, but it's only a matter of time. Todd plays a lot of Standard, a lot of Magic in general, a very accomplished Open Series player, as you mentioned, most top 8s of anyone in the history of the Open Series, and so, he already has a some points built up, of course, by just simply attending and a couple cash finishes in the early 2014 tournaments, a good run in the Invitational here, and a good run in Season 2, and he could be looking at one of the 8 at-large bids.
Yeah. I mean, Todd's accomplishments really speak for themselves, and even though he's been a little bit slower in the Open Series this year, let's not forget Grand Prix Richmond, largest constructor Grand Prix of all time, 9th place, playing the Rug, Tarmo Twin, whatever you want to call it. So he's still out there winning. Qualified for the next handful of Pro Tours from that 9th place. We'll be playing at Pro Tour Journey into Knicks, for example. So he's still doing his thing over there.
Yeah, he's had a really good run, certainly in the last couple of months of Grand Prix. Picking up some pro points and cobbling together a couple invites in a row.
Plus, he gets to start wearing a bow tie again on above the curve. So I tried to make him a little happy.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
It's a thing. Trust me.
Okay.
The real bow tie mafia on the right.
Oh, okay. That's a thing, I guess. Sure.
Game 3 will be starting here in just a little bit. If you guys are joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, and Osa Lebedovich, we're all here along with the rest of the SCG Live crew. If you guys want to check out some deck techs, we've actually got Nick Miller doing one right now with a standard deck. Also, Andrew Shrout in the house. It's been a good weekend so far as we make our way through day number 1. Don't forget day 2 tomorrow. That starts season 2 with our standard open. We'll also be doing, of course, the other 8 rounds of coverage of our invitational as we work our way towards 2 qualifications for our Players' Championship. Then we've got our Legacy Open on Sunday. More Season 2 action. We'll also do some elimination rounds for our Standard Open and our Invitational. Someone's going to walk out of here with their likeness on a card and, I guess, $10,000.
Right, plus an invite to the Players' Championship at the end of the year, which is, on average, worth over $3,000.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's,
$50K divided by 16.
I'm not good at math.
It's over $3,000 a head. So
I am not good at math. But I do know one thing. Someone's going to be very happy this week. And actually, you know what? I take that back. 2 people are going to be very happy this weekend as we punch in their tickets to the Players' Championship. And I think, unless something crazy happens, the one happy person will be on the left in BBD.
Something crazy would have to happen for him to miss from this point. 6-0, such a good start. Potentially moving on to 7-0. And he's built up such a cushion that it would require a real disaster for him.
No discard spell on turn number 1 as Todd's going to play Temple of Enlightenment. Yeah, his lead is pretty healthy. And with a 6-0 start, it's getting healthier. He's going to play a Thoughtseize here.
He may have not led with that discard spell on turn 1 on purpose.
I agree.
Giving more information. It's not like Todd's going to do anything on turn 1 with a 1 mana tops.
Yeah, it's an Esper deck.
So he gets a little more information, and he gives Todd the potential to draw the most powerful card of the cards that he sees initially.
We're going to take a look at a Supreme Verdict, an Elspeth, a Jace, a Dissolve, a Pithing Needle, a Godless Shrine, and a Hallowed Fountain. Temple of Enlightenment, of course, in play and already has scryed.
So I think that if we see Brian take Dissolve here, he's got something he may want to force through, like Underworld Connections. If he doesn't have anything that explosive to do, he can go ahead and take Jace. Also, taking Jace makes a lot of sense here if he has a Sin Collector to follow up with, as he can take the Dissolve before Todd has the mana available.
Temple of Silence there from Todd. I'll take a look at the top card of his deck. BBD, of course, did the same thing on his turn, so we'll see what BBD has on his 3rd turn as Todd will put the top card to the bottom.
You can see BBD with Underworld Connections and Sin Collector, so really good setup thus far to attack this control deck.
Nothing new drawn. BBD knew about all these cards. The question, does he want to take Dissolve or the Verdict? He wants to take the Dissolve, as you did mention. So there goes the counterspell for good.
Yeah, Brian's deck is really devoted to trying to resolve 4, 5, and 6 mana spells on his turn. They're all sorceries or creatures. So
Todd with another Scryland and Temple of Enlightenment. Of course, he's on the 12 Temple version. He loves temples, and it's hard to argue.
Brian can definitely slog through Supreme Verdicts because he can deploy one powerful threat at a time that requires a response from Todd. But the counter spells are really hard for him to play through.
You see Brian over there with Underworld Connections. He's going to start by attacking for 2. That's the easy part, going to put Anderson down to 18. The tough part is how he wants to play spells and in what order. And you see he's giving a moment of pause to figure out, okay, I will cast a Thoughtseize. Again, I do know the cards that you've been drawing, and this is part of the reason the Scrylands are so good. Obviously, they fix mana, but they let you hide cards on top.
They do a lot of things. They are incredibly powerful.
So what card does Brian want to take now? He's going to go with Elspeth.
Yeah, I think that all he wants to do in this game is take away Todd's counter spells and take away his power cards, because then Brian can win a pretty straightforward game by just resolving one of his big threats.
Well, that's a little scary there for Anderson. He's really the Aetherling. Going to play a Hallowed Fountain and pass the turn back. BBD going to untap his Sin Collector. He'll draw a card. 2 Thoughtseizes are gone, however, so it's very unlikely that Brian will be able to catch that Aetherling. See if he's going to cast a spell this go around. Looks like he did draw a land in the form of Mutavault, so he can cast Underworld Connections now. He's going to do it on the plains.
Now, of course, he knows that Todd has Pithing Needle in hand, but he's happy to make Todd use the needle. Brian still gets to draw a card, and again, he's just trying to land one of his big spells, so drawing a card and making a land drop here is critical.
Yeah. And there is the needle. And we'll get confirmation that it is naming plains. Of course, not naming Underworld Connections, has to name the land that Underworld Connections is on, in order to stop it, as Brian draws another copy of Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I think if you had asked Brian, he would have really enjoyed drawing a land this turn, but Thoughtseize is arguably better, as Todd has picked up the Aetherling that Brian does not know about.
Yeah. The question is Brian going to fire it off, and he will. So Todd just has to shrug his shoulders and say, nice job, man. That was my plan, and it's gone now. So Todd is left with a Supreme Verdict and a land. Brian going to fire at Mutavault. He's going to come across for 4. Anderson goes down to 12.
And Todd's shields are down here. Brian's able to resolve an Obstinate next turn. Todd's going to be hard pressed to get out of this game.
Godless Shrine going to come into play here for Anderson. He's considering casting Supreme Verdict because he's getting tired of being attacked by that Sin Collector. Big question is, is a 1-for-1 trade here good?
Well, the issue is he knows that Brian has a bunch of Duresses and Sin Collectors, so the Supreme Verdict is certainly not safe in Todd's hand. Brian
did not draw a land to cast Obstinate, but he does have a Desecration Demon, and that's a card you'd be happy to trade a Supreme Verdict with, but he doesn't have one. He draws a Plains, does Anderson. He's going to play Godless Shrine tapped and pass the turn back. BBD going to untap very, very quickly. He'll draw a card. I believe that was the 5th land. Demon Trigger on. Anderson's going to go down to 6. Brian with the Swamp. There's an Obstinate. Anderson's going to go down to 4. And when you need Patrick to grow a lead to go to the Players' Championship, the best thing to do is not to lose, and Brian hasn't done that yet. 7-0.
Yeah, way to take some of the wind out of our coverage sails over here, Brian. We were hoping that we'd have at least something of a competitive race this weekend, but Brian just tearing through this tournament thus far. 7-0, handing